How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the channel. This is Big Day Dave, and this is another Farm Sim Talk. This is a show where we get to talk to and interview other creators within the Farm Sim community. And today I am joined by yet another modder map maker. Really excited about this one. I am joined here by Star Spangled Modz. Star, how are you doing tonight?
Pretty good, pretty good. How about yourself, brother?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. I also want to give a big shout out before we get going to the Shanty Boys for doing the last Farm Sim Talk. Thank you, fellas, so very, very much. Had an absolute blast with you, and I'm looking forward to this one here tonight. So, before we get going into the interview, can you tell us where we can all find you?
You can find me a little bit on YouTube, mainly TikTok right now, and Facebook. All
Excellent.
Star Spangled Mods.
Excellent. I also got those linked down in the description below, so if you're interested, go check out Star over at those places. And do you want to give anybody any shout outs before we get going?
I'd like to shout out my buddy D-Tap. He came out of nowhere and started helping me out a bunch and teaching me a lot of stuff. He's helped me come far with a lot of things regarding this stuff that I didn't even know the game was capable of, and then he's figured out himself a whole bunch of things that are possible here in 25.
That's
And I'd like to thank Farm Hub for some of his help, and my buddy FS Gentleman. He's been a lot of help as well when it's come to foliage.
that's fantastic. Excellent, excellent. Some more sounds like some more farm sim love going around there, which is absolutely amazing. Great community we have going on here. So let's go ahead and get started with this. But before we do, just want to give a couple of shout outs here. I see Ken Adlam there in the chat, and also Brady Rimmer. How's it going, fellas? Hope you're all having a fantastic day. Thank you both for stopping by here. And we're going to go ahead and get into our first segment here. It's called Digging Up Dirt. This is the segment where we go ahead and get to know who you are a little bit deeper, a little bit more personal level. So we're going to start out by do you currently have a job outside of the map making sphere?
Yes, I do dishwashing on the side. I'm a young buck, so right now shifting jobs, waiting for spring to come back into effect so I can get back doing gutters. That's what I've done for a good few years. I've done a few variety of things, but by far my favorite's been learning gutters, getting to stay out in the sun and enjoy the fresh air while I can. I've had to work in some pretty dirty environments, and I like to work outside.
Oh, nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Always good to be able to get out in the sun and, just do a good day's work. That sounds fantastic. So, what kind of hobbies do you have? Do you like hiking, fishing, sports? It sounds like you enjoy the outdoors.
I'm trying to get back into fishing. I have a pullback at my mom's house I haven't grabbed in a while because normally when I go fishing, I go with my stepfather and my brothers, and sometimes my mom will go out. So I normally tend to go fishing with them exclusively, pretty much. It's like a little family habit I do.
Gotcha, gotcha. And are you into sports at all, or?
Not really. I used to follow UFC a lot and sometimes football, but more so for any physical type stuff like that. I don't mind working out or hitting the treadmill or going on a good jog. Or my favorite hobby is longboarding. That's one of my favorite things to do on a good weather day, as long as there's no rocks in the road to trip me up.
Oh, I gotcha. So that's like the really long skateboard, right?
Pretty much. It's the version they make different types of longboards for different styles of riding, but for me, I just like to cruise on it. I don't dance or do any tricks on it, so I'm pretty plain when it comes to longboarding. So I'd rather go long distance and see more and ride more than I would do tricks.
Okay, so the longboard is made for like long distance traveling rather than just like tricks or things like that. Am I understanding that
That
correctly?
and hill bombing.
Okay.
If you come across clips, there's some people that will just knee pads, elbow pads, and a helmet just go down one gnarly hill, and then you'll have some that will be in full suits just flying. And it's insane, but I can't do hill bombing. I've tried it with my mom's hill, and I ended up eating the creek pretty much. It was
Ooh.
not fun. Oh, yeah.
No. No, that definitely doesn't sound fun at all. Actually, it's funny you mentioned this because I literally just watched a video last night after signing off with the Shanty Boys there of that hill bombing, and it was the wildest one I've seen because it was not just a normal hill like you just imagine, like, I don't know, take like a city like San Francisco and people just going cruising down on these really exaggerated hills. This one was different because this one actually went onto a main roadway which connected to a highway, and they were actually riding along the highway. Like it was
Oh yeah, especially when you're younger. Um, if you ever met my buddy, he was the one that introduced me into longboarding, and from the stuff he's done, you sometimes when you're younger, you'll pull some crazy stuff. But it's also the adrenaline rush that drives a lot of people as well. But for me, after eating poop that one time, I don't know if I feel like doing it again. That was a painful time at work as well.
Oh yeah, especially because you might be able to call off for a day or so after that, but afterwards you're gonna have to suck it up and get back to it. And
Oh
there's
yeah.
especially when you're on a crew of people and you're expected to do you gutter work and stuff like that. They have time limits as to how long they want that kind of project to take before they're just gonna be like, you know what, we'll just get somebody else.
Well, thankfully, during that time, I was working at a restaurant and I wasn't doing the gutters at that time, but even so, I still was one of the people in the early mornings that would take in truck, and I would stock up all the and put away and rotate the stock and all that as it came in, and then prep some of the breakfast items before we opened up.
Oh
And but lifting the 50-pound boxes of meat was not fun.
no.
Anything heavy was not fun because the way I landed like I was sitting on a chair, and I just slammed down, and my underlegs pretty much got ripped up in road rash, and I had to get rocks picked out of it. It was fun.
Oh, oh man, that sounds painful. Yeah, I could only imagine trying to pick up a big old box of, whatever you'd have, like, burger meat or whatever, like the real heavy stuff, and then all of a sudden you're like having to deal with that as well. Like picking up a 50-pound box is not fun on a good day, but then you throw in on top of it, having road rash and, possibly like, aching pains and just all that stuff. Oh, that just sounds brutal. Oof.
Well, see, for a minute there for me, I messed up my tailbone. That's what hit the road the hardest, and it was just bruised. I would take it from what my mom was telling me because I'm not no medical person. All I know is I'm hurt, and that's it. I yeah, all I know is trying to bend over to grab a box and lift it up from the ground. It was rough, but
Oh,
normally 50 pounds ain't too shabby, but that time, that was not fun.
yeah, no, and it sounds like you're lucky you didn't break your tailbone. I had a buddy of mine back in high school. He ended up busting his tailbone, and he could hardly move. Like he was just kind of waddling everywhere he went for months, just months. And if any
Oh, it ain't
if he got into, like, if he bumped something or anything along those lines, it'd be just like a shoulder to shoulder contact because we'd be walking up and down the halls. Somebody bumped into him, he'd let out a yelp that just made you want to cry for him.
Ooh. Yeah, thankfully I could walk pretty decently. It was just sitting and trying to squat down to grab something.
Oh, I can only imagine. So, what are some of your favorite books, movies, and music?
Oh, movies. I like the Batman movies, the Arkham Knight, the Bat. Oh, which one was the first? What was the name of the first one? They came out with three movies, I think, for
Oh,
the Batmans.
Batman Begins.
Yes, Batman Begins, and the third one that came after the Dark Knight or something like that.
Yeah, it was the Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, I liked those, and but I watched a lot of World War II movies, but I can't remember Unbroken. That one was a great movie, especially because I read the book when I was in school, and the book is just insane on how in depth the story really is, but the how much details the movie actually misses out on that the book shows. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's funny that if you tend to read a book and then you read or then you watch a movie that's based off the same book, or even vice versa, really, oftentimes, like I would say probably about 95% of the people who have done that will almost knee-jerk reaction say book is better. And it's oftentimes because one, most people can sit there and paint a mental picture that's more detailed, more vivid than what you can capture on a movie screen. But then at the same time, there's oftentimes far more details that the movie, because it's got to condense for time, just leaves out altogether. And what about music? What kind of music do you listen to?
Um, I listen to a variety. I listen to rock, country, rap, hip hop, 2000s pop, the stuff my mom put in. I've been listening to a little bit of classical music as classical AI, actually, you could say, because I was introduced to a website called Suno, and it's AI generated music, and I've been checking that out a little bit, and it's got all sorts of subgenres that someone's created with AI, and it's insane.
Ah, okay, that sounds pretty cool. Actually, I've never heard of that. What was it called again?
Suno.com, Suno. It's pretty cool, especially if you can learn how to work the prompts and whatnot.
Okay, that's something I'll have to check out. So, what would you consider some of the oddest or weirdest books, movies, or music that you have watched or listened to?
I mean, music, I mean, there really isn't any weird music, I would say, but for books, it's been so long since I've read a book, it's almost embarrassing, but I know I got to get back into reading here soon. It would be also cool to read something that I read when I was back in high school to re-catch back up on those memories since it's been a while. But for movies, oh, what's that? Centipede or Human Centipede movies?
Okay,
Those
yep,
are weird movies.
yeah.
Oh my God. Anything horror I cannot do. I used to be able to do it a little bit when I was younger, but I still couldn't do it as much. And my missus, she's a big horror fan, and I just don't know how she can do it. Horror movies just, they freak me out.
It's funny because I was saying this in the last interview. There, I'm a big horror watcher, but my wife, she's not big into it. It's kind of similar, sounds similar to you, and it's just one of those that it's that kind of thrill without having to go through the experience personally, kind of thing. Kind of the
Oh yeah.
the heart racing and all that kind of stuff, and you can really get into it without having to experience some of the obvious horrors that go through it. But no, I know what you mean about the human centipede. That's not one that I've seen, but that's one that I've kind of skirted around and seen like bits and pieces of, and it definitely looked out there.
I watched it a little bit, and that was it. That was the one movie. No, no. After a bit, it was like, I don't know about this, man. There's, I think, three more movies that I'd have to watch or something. I don't know. I could finish this. I don't know about that.
So what would you do if creating maps was no longer an option for you for one reason or another? Let's say your computer blew up or whatever the case may be.
Oh, I would probably get back into fitness a little bit, and I would be trying to find maybe something else for a hobby as well.
Okay.
Because it's more so of a fun hobby for me because I've been playing Farm Sim since back in FS15 and I've gotten to see how much it's changed and now that I'm capable of making my own maps and I have a system that can support it, I'm more than happy to give it a go and enjoy doing some farming and being able to create my own maps to play on an area that suits the type of playstyle that I'm looking for and has a different, more realistic style.
I
Because I
gotcha.
value the realistic styled maps, if you get what I mean.
Oh no, absolutely. Those are kind of the styles that I prefer too. There's something about that kind of realism that just kind of just naturally grounds the map in reality. To where, don't get me wrong, there's tons of maps out there that are kind of the making of the mind, where they're absolutely gorgeous. Gorgeous. They have like all the aesthetics and the peels that a normal map would, or I shouldn't say a normal, but a realistic map would. But there's just something about that realistic style map where we've got like Oak Bridge, we've got what's the other one that just came out here recently? I can't remember off the top of my head. But just it has that air of hey, I could get in my car and drive to that place and just check it out kind of thing, and that now I get to actually do something on it. I get to experience it kind of tangentially through this game. It's a really cool thing. So no, I understand what you're saying. I appreciate that style as well. So
Oh yeah, I like being like the thing that got to me back was back on FS17 when console was granted access to mods and people started bringing in all sorts of variety of maps. And the one map I remember that introduced that more so realistic feel for me was Oakfield, I think it was. It was the first map I played. It had the map so um like in the hood map that you follow the roads on and whatnot. It was like a picture image of the satellite image, and you could see that everything was right where it would be IRL. And there's a building right here, just like it is on the map, and it's like the real thing that you're in, and that's what led me to another game, American Truck Simulator, to play was because you could drive all across the US and even with modded maps like a little bit of Mexico you could drive through and Canada and then you could drive up to Alaska.
oh wow, that sounds pretty cool too. So would you consider it to have been a dream to create content the way that you are right now, creating maps and whatnot, or is it just a kind of a hobby that's kind of filling time?
I mean, it's something for me to do and I enjoy it because I mean, I never thought I could learn how to make my own map. And once I started actually watching more and more videos on YouTube and actually gave it the time to learn how to do, it's more easier than it was now than it was starting doing it. Because when you're going in it at first, it's head first and that's it. You just gotta keep trying and you're gonna get stressed out sometimes, but as long as you keep your head straight and ask around for help, there's someone maybe willing to help a lending hand and you'll be able to figure out what's going on with someone else if the issue's hard enough. But usually with YouTube, you can find a lot of help on there.
I gotcha. And you had mentioned that you had a friend that you ended up, kind of leaning on in regards to your map making. Do you find that the kind of community itself is like a very strong one that's very willing to kind of help out when needed?
Oh yeah, there's all sorts of groups out there that I've joined and talked with various people that some I wouldn't have even think that I would have talked to for help. And there's a lot of people out there that are willing to lend a hand if you're also not just wanting to do something and just going straight to asking before you do any research as well into it before you're just going and trying to just have it done for you in a way, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, and I know exactly what you're talking about because I've heard that kind of same mentality mentioned before. Did a interview. It was actually one of my first interviews with Gaming Joy, and he kind of had mentioned kind of the same thing. It's like, hey, I'm not going to build it for you, but if I see that you're kind of putting in the effort and you need a helping hand, then I'll definitely help out where I can, kind of thing. So it seems like that kind of mentality is really kind of prevalent out there, which is a really good thing because in the end, it makes it easier for somebody like you who's trying to build their map and trying to get us content. But it's downstream, it's great for us end players who are able to then get to enjoy the creations that people like yourself are going out of their way to make. So no, that's fantastic. It's definitely one of the best communities that I've ever been a part of. Uh,
Oh yeah, I love it. It's been a joy so far, and I mean, there is no other game that I would rather do this for than Farming Sim because I mean, it's the only game I've really been playing. Here and there. I've taken occasional breaks, but it's mainly this one I ever play. I mean, obviously 25's the new one, so I'm on this one playing now and waiting for some new stuff to come out, like precision farming and some nice old school equipment because I'm more of an old school styled guy. I like that stuff more than all the new stuff.
is it like the kind of design or the kind of aesthetics of it, or is it something specific?
I like the time period it's from. It represents a lot, especially going from the what you call it 1700s and 1800s with ox and horses and even hand working, and then to the mid or 1800s with steam powered equipment some farms had, and then now we're at diesel equipment that can pull and work huge fields like the big buds. They're the most biggest tractor in the world, and they're insane. I remember when I was playing, I think it was FS 17 or 19, and Mapper's Paradise introduced the map Welker's Farms, and there was so much hype for it, especially it was a real farm, and they had a YouTube channel going on as well, so you got to keep up with their YouTube videos and learn more about their style of farming and whatnot. That was another one of my first realistic styled maps. I
That,
loved that one too.
yeah, I remember playing on Welkers for FS19 when I first started getting into farming sim, and yeah, it's like I said, those style of maps, those are the one I really lean into. Like I said, they just feel grounded. But that one, especially because I think it's really the starting farm and the pretty blue buildings and all that stuff. It really just kind of stands out. I always got a kick out of that map.
Oh
So
yeah. It was the other great one was Lone Oak, but I haven't seen that one in years.
yeah, Lone Oak was a fantastic map. That's pretty universally beloved. I'll 100% agree with you there. So, what do you think that you are not very good at, but others would disagree with you?
Oh, you could say finances. Um, there's always things that I'm obviously not going to be good at, but in my opinion, but others would say that I am, or even not, or whatnot. But I mean, I just try my best and get the job complete and go from there. And as I go on, the more stuff I'll learn as I do.
No, and you mentioned that you're a bit on the younger side, so you got plenty of time to keep learning and growing and gaining experience. So you'll get there. Everyone does.
Oh yeah.
So
Regarding the things you do, even if it shows you trouble, as long as you keep a hard head on and you keep at it, you'll learn it and get it done with, and then you'll be able to do it better and better the time after that.
absolutely, absolutely. So do you like to travel? And if so, what would be your favorite destination? What has been your favorite destination spot to date?
So far, it's been Florida. I mean, anywhere south that I've been, I've loved. I've gotten to drive th all the way through down from Florida up to New York and down with my buddy. Um, it's beautiful down south. I want to move down there sometime. I'm not a fan of the snow. I don't like cold, not one bit. I'd rather sweat and call it a day. Um, but I just like being able to have the sun on me all day and not have no cold wind going all day long and snow blowing in your face.
Well, you sound to me like what we refer to as a future transplant. Um, so I live in Florida, and it's one of those. I've lived here for going on about 21 years, give or take. And I was a transplant. I came from Michigan originally, so one of those I completely understand what you're saying and can sympathize. I'm not as opposed to the cold as it sounds like you are, but it definitely can get pretty rough, especially up in the north there. So,
Oh yeah,
did you do anything specific when you were down here in Florida?
down there was the last time I went was actually the time I got to learn longboarding. So we got to longboard all over Orlando. Um, Especially the last longboard trip while we were there, we went out to you could say the bar roads where all the bars were open and everything, and they have them shut down for foot traffic and whatnot. And we were just longboarding all over the city, and it was a blast. And you didn't have to worry about no traffic. You could just go.
Oh, that definitely sounds awesome. I've I've spent my fair share in Orlando, and yeah, anything to get out of the traffic would be amazing.
Oh yeah, it seemed to be crazy down there when we were down there. It got fast, especially on the highways. It was insanely fast.
Oh yeah. Well, one thing that I always mention about driving in Florida versus anywhere else in the world, or even in the country, I should say, is that we're a city of or we're a state of everybody from everywhere kind of thing. So we've got people from New York, we got people from Michigan, we got people from all over the country, and because of that, there's no cohesive driving style. If you're driving in New York, oftentimes you have a bunch of people from New York, live in New York with pretty much their whole lives, and they drive like New Yorkers. Same thing with Michigan. You got people who live there for pretty much their whole lives. You're gonna see distinct driving styles depending on what part of the country you're in. Down here in Florida, because there's so many different people from so many different areas of the world, you get so many different driving styles and they all clash. So you get some people who will drive like a maniac going 100 in a 20-mile-an-hour zone. You get people who will go 10 miles an hour and can't see, a foot in front of the car. So many different things, and it's just one of those just got to prepare yourself.
Oh yeah, I mean we almost got T-boned, but we got lucky and out of there real quick. So we just missed it just in time. So we were good. That was the only time we had an almost accident occur. But other than that, it was just quick. Everyone was on the move and flying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, especially there in Orlando, it gets really chaotic because of all the travel destinations and all that stuff, all the Disney worlds and the the Universal and all those things, because you're getting pretty much everybody from everywhere across the globe coming to that specific city, just to go and see all the attractions and stuff. So, yeah, it gets exponentially worse even in that area.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
I should say especially in that area. So,
Mm,
if money was no object, where would you want to travel to and why?
Oh, I'd like to, as much as I hate the snow, I'd want to go up to Alaska, get to see all the wilds up there and maybe see some moose and some big old bears and whatnot. Maybe do some hunting. I know I would want to take my mom and my stepdad up there because that was where my uncle lived before he passed, and it's got beautiful hunting areas up there and whatnot, and it'd be a nice little trip.
You sound like a man after my own heart. That is one of my bucket list items, is to get up there to Alaska. My father recently just took a cruise up there. He ended up leaving out of Vancouver and like going up. Oh goodness, I forget where all he stopped there, but it was, the pictures he took just made it look breathtaking. And I had this dream long before that whole trip, but that just really kind of cemented it for me. It's like, you know what? Get me out in the middle of the woods, out in the middle of nowhere, and I'll be a happy camper.
Oh yeah. I
Dr-
mean, it doesn't even have to be super woodlandly. I just like hiking a little bit too and getting to be with nature, hear the birds chirping and maybe any woodpeckers or whatnot that are going ham on some trees.
No, absolutely. So you'd mentioned before that you've got your mother and your stepfather, and your, I presume, girlfriend, is what I thought I heard you say earlier.
Yep.
Um, is there anything beyond that in the family dynamic?
I've got my aunt. Well, I've got a couple aunts. I've got a good few uncles. Um, and my grandma and grandpa are still around on my mom's side, and my grandma and grandpa passed a little while ago, and on my father's side, and ooh, all the older generation after that is out of the picture so far.
Okay. So, with what sounds like a pretty large extended family, and doing the dishwashing, and also doing the modding, how do you find the perfect balance to be able to get all those things done?
I don't sometimes. I get super into mapping and I'll be at it for days straight, and then I have something else come up and take my attention, and I'll take that, and then I'll hop back to the mapping, and then um something with other things and whatnot. Sometimes I'm a bit hectic. My scheduling ain't the best.
No, I hear you there. It's definitely, life gets difficult sometimes, so you gotta kind of pick your moments as to when you're gonna, start doing one thing versus the other. I completely understand that. So, what would you say inspires or motivates you?
Uh, I would say because I'm we're mostly just focus on the maps part is in that regards, I just strive to. I mean, I'm not really too sure. I just when I see something that I like and would want to see or whatnot, I try and just aim for it and shoot for it.
I gotcha. And you'd mentioned earlier how you kind of draw your map making from more of a real life perspective. Um, and currently you're working on at least one map that I'm aware of, and it's what kind of percentage would you say that you're at as it being complete and being able to ship off to Giants?
It's in the middle of 90 and 100%. I can't say for sure because we're making sure that it doesn't have any bugs that are going to be spotted right on the bat by Giants and just be declined. So we don't want to have to wait a month just for them to get to a couple things, send it back, and then it was stuff that we could have found ourselves and have wasted more and more time. So we're just taking our time with a couple of our buddies' help to test it and find any flaws or bugs before Giants does themselves, even though they're still going to find some that we don't find.
I gotcha. And you'd mentioned that you had started playing Farming Simulator back in FS15, correct?
Yes.
And how long have you been doing modding for Farm Sim?
I started right before Farm Sim 25 came out. Um, like by a couple weeks. I was gonna stay back on 22 and just make my Wamsville map on there. And I really wanted it to also be on console for my buddy because his family sold off the farm a little while ago. So he's on console, and I really wanted this map to, since it was going to be my first map and it was going to be based off the farm he grew up on. And we grew up together. I grew up around that farm a lot. My uncles worked on that farm. I wanted to make it a little bit more special for him as well so he could have it himself.
Oh wow, so it's got like a really deep like sentimental value.
Oh yeah, I mean it's where I grew up. I love the area. I love the sights of it. If you go there IRL, there's a tip of the point on the map that you would see for miles and miles and be able to see Oneida Lake and even Sylvan Beach and a bunch of surrounding towns and whatnot for miles. It's insane.
Oh, it sounds incredible. Definitely, definitely looking forward to seeing it and actually being able to interact with it, and especially now that I understand that there's kind of a deeper connection to it. Those every single map that comes out, it's obvious a labor of love. Every single one of them, but it's one of those where it's really cool to be able to get to talk to map makers like yourself, even modders and whatnot, and really kind of find out the kind of personal connections to them. Like yesterday, I was talking to the Shanty Boys there, and specifically Mr. T-Bone was telling us about how he's making a map that's dedicated to his sister. And it was just understanding that and kind of hearing the kind of behind the scenes details about things like that is really kind of inspiring. And like I said, just makes me just that much more excited to be able to get a hold of your map when it comes out and be able to kind of experience it through your lens. I'm looking forward to it.
No, I appreciate it. It's been a lot of work, especially my partner DTAP. He's put in a ton of work and he's a late night type of person. So I'll tell him, make sure he's not on too late. And this man will stay up all night working away at it. And just the way he works is insane. He's a great guy at technical stuff. It's insane.
So, seeing as that you're relatively new to the modding map making scene, what would you say up until this point is one of the most difficult things about creating your map?
I would say it depends on what you're gonna be going for with some of the stuff because just editing the map in Giants Editor alone can be pretty easy. Like the terrain editing, I prefer to build my farms in Giants Editor than in game. That's how much easier it is in Giants Editor with terrain. I love it. The smoothing, it's nice and you can really get into it when you're trying to edit a area and make it look nice and whatnot, especially if you're going to be putting say a stream in, a pond, though it can be really difficult because there's so many different ways of doing it. And one way I've been learning is like splines and like the spline height panel script I'm using now. It's a great helpful feature. It helps out a whole bunch. That there's also people that don't even create mods. They create scripts that help the modders do different things that you can't really do with the base stuff that Giants gives you itself. It's like another little mod for the system itself to work pretty much.
Oh, okay. That's see. I'm loving these conversations, these interviews, because I'm getting to find out so much more about the behind the scenes, about the Giants editor and like the whole building a map, building a mod, all the kind of components that goes into it. It's very interesting, and I've always loved that kind of technical aspect. Full knowing that it's not something that I could ever do, because I don't have the eye, that kind of artistic eye, as I always refer to it as, for being able to make a mod or be able to make a map. I've lacked that creative gene. So it's always interesting to kind of get to talk to individuals like yourself to kind of, you know, get to experience that creativity kind of tangentially through the, person I'm talking to.
Oh
So,
yeah, it's really in depth when you get more into it, and there's so many ways to do just one thing alone. It's crazy. I know about three different ways that you can, two or three different ways that you can import a single thing into Giants editor per se, and there's multiple ways of painting, and it's there's so many ways to go about it. It's hard to say of a right way that you can do something because there's so many ways that you can do stuff.
So it kind of sounds like the way that Giants has it set up on the back end there. It almost sounds like it's very similar to the way they have it on the front end for us users. Really kind of a how do I say this? Really kind of a you know pick your poison as to how you want to interact and play with the game. Like, all right, so basically what I'm trying to get at is, you can sit there and play Farming Simulator, and you can play in so many different styles, right? You can play as a ultra realistic, you can play as a kind of a fast farmer, super unrealistic, or somewhere in between. Well, it sounds like, the way that Giants have that set up is very similar in that regards, to where it's very up to the individual who how they want to proceed with their editing.
Pretty much, and it also depends on what other people are also around creating scripting and whatnot, because you can also create a map from scratch a few different ways, or like IKWatt, I believe his username is on Discord. He's uses his server maps for FS. He's scripted a tool with a couple other people's help. I'm not too sure on everyone else off the top of my head, but there's a lot of people that have helped him with his work. Um, and what he's done with that tool is just incredible. It's scripting that pretty much takes real life terrain data and generates that with, as well as you go into, say, OpenStreetMap. It's like Google Maps in a way, but you can map in the fields and woodlands, and you can also add in roads or buildings or whatnot. So when you take it into well, when you generate it, it will generate the i3D and the XMLs and everything for you. And all you have to do is clean up the coding and get the farmlands and whatnot suited and ready to go. And it has the fields on it, it'll have the trees on it, it'll have the roads painted for you on where they're going to be. And you can either use them as your roads or you can do your own type of roads or whatnot. And it's one of the best tools that could have came out for FS because now it creates a lot less time for someone just to get it from hand done. Some of us call it is hand doing it because you have to manually do everything to get it set up and looking the way it comes out of Maps for FS. With Maps for FS, it's a major time saver for map makers, and I recommend anyone that's trying to, even for a fantasy map, and you want a map based out of, say, Wampsville, New York, and you just wanted to do your own type of map on there, you could have the terrain right from there and do that.
Okay, that sounds very similar to like what the Shanty Boys were saying yesterday in regards to, I think it was Brennan, using something. It sounds at least similar to what you're describing there. So, what would you, or what's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Um, Sometimes the farming simulator, whatnot, because I mean, not everyone I know is from the country area, so I moved away a little while ago, so now I'm more so in the city, so everyone's usually wonders on how people actually play and how it's keeps some people entertained, and with for me it's just the amount of stuff you can do with it.
Gotcha. And would you say that you're because you kind of come from the countryside and whatnot, or at least the way that you're describing it? Would you say that that's kind of how you found the love for Farming Simulator? Is it you kind of have that more personal connection to the country?
I would say so because my thing was when I got into FS for 15, it was like, look at that, that's a tractor I got to see or got to even ride in, and it was just incredible. And then you could also raise your own farm and have your own dairy cows. In the farm that I grew up around was a dairy farm, so that impersonated dairy farms more so for my style because I grew up with it, and that's something I love to see. But that don't mean I don't like other styles of farming. It's just my top one will always be dairy.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, what would you say is one of your biggest fears?
Ooh, throw me in a pit of snakes. That'd be the worst thing that could happen.
Of course, you would say that.
I mean,
I'm right there with you, man. I I hate snakes. I hate snakes.
see, I like them, but I like to look at them. But when it comes to actually dealing with them, no, I can't do that. It freaks me out too much. I don't feel like getting bit today, even though some people say it's not that bad. But my aunt, her and my uncle raised their own snakes and whatnot, and had a whole ton of them. They even raised their own mice or rats, you could say, for feeding their snakes and helping others feed their snakes. They would do that as well. But it was just insane what can go into snake breeding alone.
Whew. So funny story. Well, it's funny now. It was not funny when it happened, but many years ago, I ended up letting my dogs out. I've got two dogs. At the time, I think I had three, and I'm letting them all out. And it's early in the morning. I have a big bowl of cereal, and I'm just kind of crunching away, and I'm out behind the house and just keeping an eye on the dogs because down here in Florida, we've got all sorts of different critters that can hurt dogs. One thing that's very prevalent down here is something called a bufu toad, and what they are is a giant toad that if you mess with them, they'll start secreting a toxin, and it will very quickly start to affect the dog and their nervous system and all that stuff. So it's one of those I always stand outside to make sure that there's no bufu toads around or anything like that. And it was, like I said, very early in the morning. Really, you only got to worry about them really early in the morning or at night. And So I'm standing out there early in the morning, crunching away on my cereal, and all of a sudden I just feel something, brush up against my feet. And down here in Florida, closed-toed shoes are very uncommon, because it's hot. It's always hot. So flip-flops or people call them thongs or whatever, those are very
Yeah.
common down here. So I'm sitting there and I got my flip flops on and I feel something go traipsing across my foot and I'm like, huh. I look down and I didn't see anything right away and I look back up and I go to look for the dogs and all of a sudden I see a snake, a giant black snake, go slithering away. And that's when I put two and two together. It's like, oh my goodness, that snake just crawled across my foot. And I swear I let out the biggest scream I think I had ever let out in my entire life, and the amount of cursing and just that came flowing from my mouth at that point. Thankfully this is long before my kids were born, so I didn't have to worry about them, but I'm sure the neighbors weren't happy with me.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, needless to say, that was a very bad morning. That was one of the mornings where my wife comes storming out of the house and she's like, "What are you screaming about?" It's like, "There's a snake! A snake just ran over my foot!"
Yeah, I'm all good on that. Uh nah, I've seen videos of snakes coming out from the ceiling fans and at the toilet and whatnot, and no, it freaks me out.
Oh, yeah. Yep. That actually happened to my grandmother up there in Michigan, where she had one coming out from the toilet when she was on the toilet. Oh,
Oh Lord. Oh Lord.
well, her and my grandfather, they live in a really old farmhouse up there in Michigan, out in the middle of nowhere. And the house for the toilet, the actual sewage line leads out to not like a normal septic field, but they call it, I think it's called a French ditch, and it's just a pipe that leads to a drainage ditch, and it just kind of runs out into into the field, but it's not underground; it's actually above ground. So it's one of those to where normally you have oversized S traps in the piping. Well, I guess when their house was built, they didn't have something like that. They just had a normal S uh, in their piping leading out from the toilet. So needless to say, on that day, after that occurred and the snake got in and my grandmother went bolting for her life, she demanded of my grandfather to make sure that there was no undersized S traps for that sewage line. So, needless to say, my grandfather had to promptly go ahead and cut out the S trap and do all the things that were necessary to get the oversized one for their situation. So, needless to say, yeah, that was a very bad day for my grandmother.
Oh, I bet. I'm good on all that.
I'm right there with you. So, what about you? Do you have any pets?
We got my Mrs. Dog Milo. She's had him for, I believe, about 4 or 5 years now. But I grew up with a couple pit bulls, more so Brock. He's about 10 or something like that now. Um, we got him from, what's it called? Uh, we saved him pretty much. We got him from a local animal spot, and he was all skin and bones, and we gave him a home and whatnot, and now he's a fat old boy just laying around and eating food.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it when I hear people adopting and whatnot. You get to give them a new lease on life. That's fantastic. So, what would you say is your favorite creator outside of Farming Simulator? So, like YouTuber, Twitcher.
Oh,
Uh,
queso. Me and my missus will watch his streams a lot sometimes. We'll go on streaks watching his streams at night. But more so we'll watch his either recaps of his streams, or watch episode on a certain game he played for a night or whatnot. That's one of the latest, funniest guys we've been watching for the last year. I want to say we've been watching him for now. I also watch a little bit of Hollow for game series. He's a good one for getting to see how other games are and whatnot.
I got you. And is there anybody that you kind of draw inspiration from in regards to your map creating, your modding, and whatnot?
Um, I would see before I got into late 22 just going into 25, I wasn't really paying much attention to who the map makers were, other than for like Millennial Farms and Walker Farms and Oakfield and Oxen Davids and Bullet Bill or something. I think Bullet Bill made a few maps back in the console days, but more so then I didn't really pay attention to who the mappers were. It was more so, oh, let's just hop on, try this out, and see what happens and how nice of a map it is and whatnot. And now, eh, when you're trying to be more into the compute community, a lot. It's a lot nicer than just downloading and go, because sometimes you'll be able to find a bug and help that person find that bug and help them get it fixed, or even say for buildings or whatnot, because I don't know how to model my own buildings yet and create them from scratch. So I would more so have to ask permission from other modders to use their stuff in my maps, since I'm going to be doing a public release of my maps. So if it was for private use, most don't mind because it's not going public, but it's proper and respectful to ask permissions regardless, just in case if you ever do change your mind down the road as well.
I gotcha. And I think we got time for one more question here before we have to move on to our next segment. Uh, if you can meet any three people in the world, past or present, who would they be and why?
Ooh, ooh, that's a good question. Ooh, hmm. That's a good question. I haven't really thought about that in the longest time.
So I'll buy you some time here. So part of the reason why I asked this question is it kind of gives us a glimpse into who it is that you feel is important, whether it's, a sports star, whether it's, family, whether it's, somebody important in history, whatever the case may be. It really kind of gives, us a glimpse into those people who you think are, worthy enough to, for you to be able to meet them, somebody that you find of value, kind of thing. So it's part of the reason why I asked that is it's a nice little kind of uh, inside the psyche kind of thing.
I would say probably George Washington, just because that would give more insight to how things went back when the revolution came about and all the way through till the end of it, and how it came to be today with laws and elections and whatnot, trying to have a free country pretty much. Because he also, from what I've learned in school or history class, was oh, what you call it? Oh, I lost it. What was it? He was also a lot of people were fine with him becoming a king, but he didn't want that responsibility and he wanted true a true freer country. So he served his 2 terms, I believe, and then he called it, and that was it. From I do believe I could be wrong by a term, but I believe he only did 2 terms.
No, so I'm fairly certain that you are correct. Yeah, he was. A lot of people wanted to pretty much anoint him as the king of the Americas, and it was one of those where because they came from that kind of system, and it was one of those where they knew the kind of the absolute power that can corrupt absolutely, wanted to avoid that at all costs. And it's part of the reason why they set up the governmental structures that we have now the way that they did, is that they were so afraid of the kind of tyranny of a single person. They wanted to decentralize things as much as possible, which is why we have the things like checks and balances. Each one of these different you know governmental chambers can basically check each and every one. Is because of the fears of the one person being in power that can be corrupted.
Oh yeah, it's crazy out there. That's why it can be so scary. I mean, everyone was freaking out when COVID happened. I remember being in, I think it was 10th grade, and COVID happened, and everyone was just freaking out. Freaking out. It's crazy out there.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. And that is going to wrap up our first segment there. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the chat to see if anybody has any questions for you. So let's go ahead and check things out from there. Let's see. Let's see. It looks like we got one from Ken Adlam. Thank you, Ken, so much for your question. I do appreciate it. It says, does Star Spangled ever take a break from map making to actually play Farming Simulator?
Actually, yes, I've done a little bit fairly recently. I've been playing a little bit of my maps, but because I want to wait really to for them to be more complete and actually have a playthrough to play on, I've been resorting to another map to play on, just so I can take a break from mapping itself and be able to find motivation and other things and get some ideas on what I'd like to see and whatnot. And plus, it's what I started from, so I might as well go back to what I'm used to every now and then and get to enjoy actually playing the game.
I gotcha. And Ken asked another question. Thank you again, Ken. Says, what does Star Spangled think of the? He says the Nextall, but I think he means the Nexat mod. So it's the new DLC that we're getting. Uh, he wants to know what your opinion of it is.
I mean, it's evolutionary because it's the newer thing that's actually hitting today's farms, and it's capable of so many different things all in one machine, and it's huge as well. And it makes for more proper irrigation styled farming and whatnot. But for my style of the playthroughs and how I grew up, it's not really something that I would use. I more so like seeing an old like John Deere Titan series or a old school International or even a Gleaner. I'm not a big fan of the old school New Hollands, but I'm more of a a little newer and old school styled stuff, and that for me isn't what I like to mess around with. But I remember messing around with it back in 22, and it was really interesting getting to see that styled machinery come in.
Gotcha, gotcha. And I believe that's all the questions there. Greatly appreciate the questions there, everyone. Now we get to move on to our next segment. This segment's called the Meat and Potatoes, emphasis on potatoes. This is where we get to know you more for what it is you're doing within the Farming Simulator community. So, I think I have a understanding, or at least what I think of an understanding as to this question, but I'll go ahead and ask it anyway. What's the story behind your username?
See, for me, because I'm more so going to be focusing on American farming, I decided to take like the Star Spangled Banner, um, Star Spangled Mods. So instead of obviously the banner, it'll be mods, and it's just a little something of American nature.
That's fantastic. And you had mentioned a couple of times that you're currently working on a map that's based around where you grew up. Um, are there any other kinds of maps that you're going to be interested in making beyond that?
I'm also working on Forest, Wisconsin. That will be a console map as well. That is a little east of St. Paul, Minnesota, I do believe. It's also near there's a Hudson River over there as well. Um, and in the near future after that, I'm gonna do a couple of Forex maps to see how that goes and what I think about mapping them size big maps. I know I'll be doing one with a certain someone here soon on a Missouri map. And then after that, it'll come to Mamou, Louisiana.
Oh, that's fantastic. So it sounds like you've got a whole plethora of different areas here in the U.S. that you're really interested in, kind of tackling. That sounds fantastic. So let me ask you this: is uh, is there a method behind when you decided, I'm going to do the Wisconsin area, I'm going to do the Louisiana area, the New York area? I mean, that one seemed kind of obvious, but is there a method which you go through to decide, what, I'm going to choose this place as opposed to say someplace else?
For me, it's the land style. Um, is it a countryside or is it a town style? Um, or is it just bare countryside pretty much, which a couple of my maps pretty much are. That's why they're in a way you could say basic because I mean Wamsville is far from basic, but at first my original ideas for it were to keep it fully realistic, but over time we've found some stuff that just it felt worth to having to do, even though pretty much the player will be able to delete the stuff out that they don't want to see. So regardless, the player will be able to have a realistic experience even if they don't want to deal with this building being here or this one or whatnot. So it's more free form to how the player wants it, either the less realism or more realism of more value of the realism. That's why we only have one sell point in our maps. And for the well, not the sell station, the shop where you buy your vehicles, and the homestead edition, it's right at the farm enacting a a delivery area. So you don't go to the shop, you get to go over to your little shed and get on the computer, order a couple pieces of equipment, and you get to RP the experience of ordering some equipment instead of actually driving to the dealership.
Okay, I gotcha. No, that it. I guess I never really thought about it, but that's actually kind of a good little workaround for not wanting to alter a area too drastically to where you're going to put in kind of unnatural features into a map. Especially as you mentioned before, you're looking for that kind of sense of realism and that grounding in your maps. So that's a really good workaround in my opinion. So do you'd mentioned how you have only recently started the whole modding experience here for Farming Simulator, but have you ever modded for any other uh, game prior to this?
No, I didn't really find any necessity in me trying to mod any other games. I didn't like lately, as we've seen, some maps are taking longer and whatnot, and some areas in the world we just don't see. and some people won't will just focus on a certain state, for example, or they'll focus on a certain continent or whatnot. And for me, I want to be able to play on more American styled maps, so I thought, why not get into really making the map so not just myself can enjoy, other people that want to play in that area will be allowed to do that, you know what I mean? So it's not just for myself.
Absolutely. And so you'd also mentioned that part of your motivation to make Wompsville was that it was kind of inspired by your friend and their farm. Um, is there any other reason outside of that that kind of drives you to move beyond Walmsville and kind of introduce the Wisconsin and Louisiana and all these other areas that you mentioned before? Is there a kind of motivation to want to see individuals be able to play your maps and to see how they're gonna, react and build on them and kind of utilize them?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I'm excited for everyone's reactions to Wompsville because there's so much work that's gone into it and ideas and time and testing and seeing if this will work and how does this work with this and will that cause any problems, and if so, how do we fix those problems, and being able to get to see it get to work more and more over time and getting to see the end finished piece is just amazing. And then being able to see other people and not just yourself go and make something out of that while actually playing it. And for some people, they also do their own content series and whatnot and seeing what they do with that and whatnot. So I try to cater a little bit to everyone. So, like me and my partner, we wanted everything to be able to, especially for the AI, be hideable. So if you don't want Grandpa, like some people complained about in the Riverbend map, Grandpa just sitting there at your farm and not everyone liked it, and we're fencing him off so you won't see Grandpa, which was it was hilarious seeing them post on Facebook and TikTok. But just for them type of players, they'll be able to just wipe them off the map and not have to worry about it whatsoever.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, that's the one thing that always kind of rubbed me the wrong way playing on Riverbend because I've got a series going on there right now. Is seeing old Gramps there just sitting there and creepily just stare at you wherever you go on the map.
And as you walk, he turns more and more and more, watching. Yep.
It's just one of those I wish I could just look over him. It's like, can I help you with something?
And then you go click on him, same 10 things over.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I clicked on it one time and regretted it ever since.
It was still a pretty cool idea how they brought it into the game. I just think they could have done a good bit more with it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as a kind of first pass at making a kind of interactable character, somebody for us to kind of, you know, to kind of learn from, especially for those players who are brand new to the game. You've been playing since FS15. I've been playing since FS19. We've gone through and we've played iteration after iteration to be able to, kind of build up our skill set to know what needs to be done. But that is definitely a nice and unique approach to be able to learn from the game itself without having these massive boards from like FS19 and I'm sure before that, these massive boards of text that just kind of very generally explain well, you got to do this and you got to do that and all that. It's nice to be able to have that kind of interactability and kind of a more approachable way, but definitely something that I think that with some iterations and with some time they'll be able to make it even better. That's the hope, at least.
Well, see, the way I learned how to play the game actually, because I was so young, I didn't know how certain things worked within farming and whatnot. The way I ended up learning how to play the game was I was watching Dagger win in FS15, and because I came into FS15, I would say mid middle to early late stage of FS15, and then FS17 was going to come out in a little while there. So I got to play FS15 for a nice little minute to see pretty much in my opinion, FS17 was one farming simulator just got more realistic style. Like, I don't believe in FS15 you could even dump on the ground and scoop it up. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure you only could do that pretty much like with bales.
Oh wow. Yeah, so that's a pretty big improvement. I mean, just going from a year to year kind of concept. So I'm going to ask this question, but I understand that your kind of pool is going to be limited for this, so I'll take that into account. Uh, so, what's one thing that you never expected when you started to create your maps and creating content? Some examples I give are the kind of sense of community, any unexpected backlash, which I wouldn't imagine any unexpected backlash as of this point. But like I said, a sense of community or anything along those lines. Has there been any kind of unexpected events that have happened?
I mean, not anything bad. It's just been like crazy. The community has been so welcome arms and happy to help that it just blew my mind because at first just scrolling through all the Facebook posts on some groups and seeing how annoying and toxic and mean and whatnot people can be, you get to meet more people and actually get to work with people that thoroughly enjoy making some sort of difference in the game just for a play style or a map or a piece of equipment or whatnot. It's everyone's putting in effort to make the community a little bit better and be able to feel more at home in a way you could say.
I gotcha.
But
Oh, what was that?
but it's been nice and welcoming and opening, just getting the help that I really needed sometimes after I've gotten stumped for sitting there for days on end trying to try different ways and whatnot. And even Gaming Joy helped me a good bit in the beginning when I first started getting into, I believe it was Dust Bunny, I believe, that told me about Gaming Joy and got me into his Discord. And for my North American tall grass edit, he was the one that got me started on that at first. And he had an article from FS22 on making a crop out of the base game stuff, and that's how I got to learn how to take the base game stuff and make it into something new almost, but I just don't know how to make, like, say, a complete different crop from exact scratch. You know what I mean? Because there's some different things that go on with doing that than just making some XML tweaks like my grasses, because I just use the base game textures to have the grass look.
I gotcha. No, and that makes total sense because you know there's very often times where I'll see other map makers, they'll use like alfalfa as an example, but really all alfalfa is I mean, at least this is my understanding, and I could be 100% wrong because I'm again not a modder, not a map maker, but my understanding of it is that it's essentially the same scripting the XML of grass, and then it's just put on with different textures and stuff like that in the grass's place, kind of thing. So it's using the same kind of growth system and calendar and stuff like that. It's just those small tweaks that can like bring forth in game kind of stuff. But again, that's my understanding of it.
Oh yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. There's so much that I want to learn myself that there's a lot, especially even just trying get your own buildings for the map I've found is at least for me, a real challenging lesson to learn.
So you've mentioned here today on several maps that you're either currently working on, going to be working on, etc. Do you have any ambitions to be able to take it to the next step and start doing the building, start doing even more complicated mods like tractors or anything along those lines?
See, I don't want to do tractors because there's already a good amount of guys out there that focus on the American side of equipment and whatnot, and it's just taking time for them to convert it from 22, and then after that, more new projects will come up that they'll start working on the newer stuff, and for me, I'd rather just do the mapping, and then once I get to the point of being able to learn building and wanting to take the time to learn that and step away from mapping for a bit so I can focus on my skills with modeling, it'd be a little while.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. Um, so So really, it sounds like it's a skill that you would like. The equipment side is not something that you'd necessarily be into like kind of diving too deeply into, but really in an effort to kind of enhance the maps that you are going to be making, diving into more of the buildings and the kind of spaces that would be found within the maps themselves. That sounds like something that you would be more interested in.
Pretty much. It's more so for getting the player more immersed in the style of the area because not every area has the same styled houses or barns or even what you call it, roads or whatnot. So it's all a little bit different and unique to the area.
I gotcha. And let's say skill wasn't an issue. You had all the prerequisite knowledge to be able to do it. What would be the one thing that you would love to be able to bring into, let's say, FS25, that you just don't feel like you're capable of doing it just yet, but you would love to be able to tackle it as a project?
Oh, I would love to do some of my own dairy barns. I haven't gotten to see much yet this game, but from what I've seen, the animals are just even better than before, and it just makes perfect sense to get some more dairy barns in here, especially American style, because I mean, that's what a lot of us from America have grew up with, so it's a home to us in a way you could say.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you may mention here about the community and the help that you've received along the way. So as you continue to grow and as you continue to build your skill set in doing the map making and hopefully eventually the modeling for the buildings and stuff like that, can you see yourself to where you're gonna want to try and you know be proactive in kind of the reciprocating of the knowledge transfer? Are you going to want to be able to actually like I guess pay it forward to be able to help other modders along the way?
I mean, I already do try with the things that I know. Like for me, taking a crop is unique to some people, and with 25 from 22, it's a little bit different than it used to be. And even making a map is new. There's new ways. So I've taken time with a good few people showing them how to use this new scripting maps for FS so they can create their own stuff, well, own maps, even
And
if it's just for their own home area that they grew up around.
and that's fantastic. Like you had mentioned, I've mentioned this many times on this channel before, but this is a fantastic community. The amount of generosity that exists within the farm sim community, I've yet to see it on any other community that I've ever been a part of, and I've been a part of quite a few in my time. there's definitely so many people out there that are willing to help out. And it sounds like you, um, even though you've only been doing this for 4 or 5 months, sounds like you're already starting to dive into that portion of it, being able to help out people along the way who may be a few steps behind you, which is fantastic. That's awesome to hear. So focusing in on Wompsville, and by the way, absolutely love the name. I know it's a real life location and whatnot, but every time I hear it, I just always think of Mario and the Womps that are part of
Oh
that game.
Lord. See, I loved Mario so much. I want to get a Wii U maybe or a Switch because with a Switch you can get a membership through them and you'll be able to play all the older games that they had and you can play all the older Marios and I haven't played it since the Wii U and I just miss Mario. It's been so much fun.
Oh, I'm an old school Mario fan. I grew up with Mario. What's you mentioned that you're a bit on the younger side. Do you mind if I ask what your age is?
I'm 20.
20. So have you played some of the original Marios?
Yeah, I can't. It's been so long, I can't remember the names of them because my mom, she had a one of the older machines, the Nintendo 64, I believe, and she had the Game Boy, the Wii, there was a few other Nintendos that she also had. Um, I played the one that was based off with the leaf power that you would fly around as a squirrel power pretty much. And there was some other ones, but I can't, it's been so long that I can't remember all the games that they've had. That's why I want to get a Switch so bad.
So that one is Mario 3, and that was on the. Was that on the original Nintendo, or is that the Super Nintendo that came out?
Oh, the Super Nintendo. It was either the Nintendo or Super Nintendo because my mom had the one that had the most releases on it, and there was like 3 or 4 Mario games on that alone.
So I think that was the original Nintendo, now I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I think one, two, and three were on the original Nintendo. Um, kind of a funny story. I don't know if you know this, but a little Mario history. So Mario One and Mario Two, or I'm sorry, Mario One and Mario Three were games that were specifically designed and developed for the Mario series. But Mario 2, if you look at Mario 1 and contrast it against Mario 2, you'll notice that it's a radically different style, different characters, different everything. And the reason that was is because they basically took a separate game that had nothing to do with Mario whatsoever and reskinned it for Mario because Mario became so popular, and that the original release of the game, which eventually became Mario 2, was so unpopular that the basically the developers said, "Well, what can we do to punch this up?" And they just inserted Mario as the protagonist kind of thing, and they made it to where you could select all the different characters at the time, like Princess Peach, Toad, um, and I forget who the fourth character, but there was four
Luigi.
characters. Was Luigi in Mario 2? I can't remember.
Oh, that. Well, in Mario 2, I'm not too sure. Um, I know in the main stories it's Mario and Luigi and Peach and a couple of the Toads.
Mm-hmm.
They've had a couple different versions of the Toads. Um, and then you had Browser and whatnot as the bad guys and his siblings, I believe, or cousins, family, and whatnot.
Correct. Yeah. So I always found that as a very interesting kind of fun fact about the whole Mario franchise, but specifically about Mario's 1 to 2, is that it just got Mario 1 just became so overwhelmingly popular just worldwide. It was a complete phenomenon at the time. that they basically took a already developed game, reskinned it, and just slapped Mario on it and said, "Here's Mario 2." And you can see just the entire gameplay mechanics. Everything about that game is radically different than the first one. And then you see it kind of shifted back in Mario 3 to be more like Mario 1. And they even,
Oh
what
yeah.
was really funny is that they had non-canon characters in Mario 2 that were specific to the game that they reskinned. They just kept the bad guys in from the original game and put it in as bad guys for Mario. So you had all these characters that really had no bearing in the series whatsoever. They just kind of came out of nowhere, but nobody really batted an eye at the time because, there wasn't as much canon or lore that was, surrounding the series, and they kind of retconned it afterwards to kind of fill in the gaps. So,
Oh yeah. I love older games just because of the amount of stuff that lore that a lot of them had. Like Mario just and then the different types of games that community had, like Mario Party, I believe there was a couple versions of where you had different sports like there what sports were in that? Oh, I can't remember. They had a couple different mini games in there, and then you had Mario Kart, and they had so many Mario Karts.
mm-hmm.
I miss playing that one too, with a little wheel attachment to the Wii remote.
Yep, yep. Well, it's funny because, like I said, I'm an old school Mario fan. That's the one game, that Mario Kart, that I was actually able to get my father to play because he was never big into gaming or anything like that. But that was the one game where he's like, "Let me give this a try." And as soon as I did, he was hooked. And anytime I would be playing on that, he would come over and start playing on it with me, kind of thing. And like I said, the one game that he would actually get into.
Mario Kart's just awesome like that. It's a great family game. You can play with up to like four people.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So we kind of trailed off there into Mario, which I'm certainly not going to complain. But I was originally starting to ask about Wompsville, and that's when I kind of trailed off on the Womps. Uh, but what was one of the hardest or the longest thing on that map? What was the hardest thing on that map that kind of took you the most time to create?
Um, I would say for me it was probably the crop, but for my partner creating the stuff that I can't talk about right now till it comes out of release because we're hiding some of the stuff. There's even making the custom buildings took a nice little minute. But a, some of the stuff in there can take days.
And how long have you been? Well, so Wompsville, you've been working on that since FS 22. Um, have you been working on it like day in, day out? Since then, have you taken any breaks or anything like that?
In the beginning, I was working because pretty much it's winter time, so with gutter season, it's you don't really do much in the snow. It's batting freezing out. And I wasn't working dishes at the time, so I was just working on this, and I was sitting there 12 to 18 hours, a good amount of days, and working on that and learning how to do this and sitting there watching an hour-long video on this and then following along with it and making sure I learn how to do that right. And then meeting DTAP and some other people, getting help from them on different things and getting more towards completion with my North American tall grass edit. And even just the buildings alone can be a lot to mess with.
I gotcha. And if you had one bit of advice to give to somebody who's new to modding, what would that be?
I would say pick an area and take your time with it, be patient, but take your time with it. Follow along videos. It's the most useful thing out there. There's a lot of people that even from 22, a lot good amount of stuff is still referenceable to 25. Not everything is, obviously some things have changed, like seasons aren't in here no more like it was back in 19, and how the animals work and whatnot. So say for making a building in, well, a animal barn pretty much in 25 is different in a way than it was in 22, just getting it so the animals are in and whatnot.
Okay. And you were mentioning how you have more of a style where you want to kind of stick with more like reality based farms and farmlands. Do you have any desire to kind of make a map that's more of a out of your own head kind of thing that's more fiction based?
Not really. I mean, the most fiction you'll really see from me and the way I want to see things is just some buildings not placed that would be not be that would really be there IRL. I may not have placed in the same area, or I might have a couple buildings that wouldn't be there IRL and whatnot. But for the most part, for the game, I prefer to just do more so realistic style stuff. Wompsville was more in a shot in the dark for to be able to be playable by multiple styled players. That's where my original idea to be do something somewhat like how what was that first map on 25 with a couple versions on it.
Oh,
Um
New Frontier.
New Frontier, and how the guy was able to have a couple versions in that map alone. We took to our map, my Wampsville, New York map, and made it so you have the Homestead Edition, which is just like the IRL spot. Then you have the logging and mining edition, which is uses the terrain of Wampsville, New York, but instead it's logging and mining and whatnot, and some special productions. And then you have the DIY one, which they all have a little bit of mining in it, but the mining and logging edition is more forefront for it. And then you've got the DIY edition, which has a mini town with the AI and whatnot sitting there, and then you can build out around that and build your own map pretty much.
I mean, all that sounds amazing to me. Again, you're just making me more and more excited to get my hands on it. So it sounds like to me that you're really like focused on the realism aspect, and you're only going to make adjustments as a kind of as needed kind of thing. But you're really heavily focused on what would be there in real life, which again that's right up my alley. So I again really looking forward to that. You've mentioned before that you've played since FS15. Would you consider Farming Simulator be your favorite game out there?
Oh yeah. You could ask my missus and she'd tell you it's pretty much the only game that ever sees the TV. I used to play Call of Duty a good bit back when I was younger. Ghost Recon, um, Battlefield was another one of my old favorites, like Battlefield 5 and Battlefield 1 because of the World War One and World War Two aspect of it and the teamwork that would go into the gameplay and whatnot. Um, I played a good amount, but now I more so just like being able to play this game. And now that I know how to make my own maps, I'll be able to play maps on areas that interest me and my playstyle and maybe suit some others' playstyles as well.
I gotcha. And what would you say was your most favorite map in any of the FS iterations that you played up until this point?
Ooh. Um, Oh, I would have to go back to 17. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a super small map. It was scaled down a little bit more than the base game map was, and the farm was tight knit and whatnot. You really had to use smaller equipment, and it forced me to really get more involved with a smaller scale of things. And I loved that about the map. It was, I believe, an Irish map, based somewhere out of Ireland. Um, but I just cannot remember the name of it. But it reminds me in a way of Ballincraig Estate. Ballincraig, I believe it's called.
Okay, okay. And how about the opposite of that question? What would you say is your least favorite map on any of the uh, iterations that you played?
Oh, I mean, I would say Silver Run, to be honest. Just because it's not really for me, and to be honest, it's a little focused on other things than I would like, but obviously, not even everyone's going to have the same tastes as one another. What that doesn't mean it's not a good map at the end of the day. It's just it doesn't suit one's map playing style. So not every map is going to be great out there for everyone. That's why some maps just aren't going to be good to some people, but it's going to be like a man's treasure pretty much to others.
So, what kind of style of farming do you prefer to do? Do you prefer to do arables, tree logging, grass care? What's your kind of
Normally, I'll
specialty?
do dairy with hay care. I'll only cut grass for hay. I don't really ever just do grass for grass. I don't really sell silage. Sometimes I'll do exclusively hay, but I'll do hay and corn for silage and do cattle pretty much, either mainly dairy and sometimes cattle. But right now I'm waiting for the PC Slaughterhouse mod to come back out. I think Thunder FS did it back in 22. I could be wrong.
I gotcha. And let's see. If you could pick, well, this might be the same answer as we just discussed there, as being your most favorite. But if you could pick any map from FS in any iterations that you had to be able to come to FS25, what one would it be?
Oh, dude, I would love to play that Irish map again. It's been so long and I haven't touched FS17 back since I had my first Xbox One, because it came out on the Xbox One, I do believe. It wasn't on 360. It was the first one to come to the new generation style.
So one kind of running theme that I personally experience as well is that other creators within the farming simulator, and just I would imagine this kind of being universally true for most creators in general, very oftentimes don't get an opportunity to really play the game per se. They're more worried about, in my case, making content, or in your case, making the maps and things like that. So you really don't get an opportunity per se to play the game the way that it's intended. You're more concerned about doing the things that you are doing for the game itself. Do you find yourself in that kind of same state, or do you find yourself in some uh, in a disagreement with that statement?
I would say it varies because right now I haven't dived much into the content part other than stream playing the game or making my photo collages of me taking pictures as I go through different tasks and whatnot, and uploading them as shorts for now. Um, I would say it's not too bad because I get to stick to my style. And I mean, once I come to maybe doing my own series, possibly, I'm not too sure right now because Obviously, modding in itself takes a lot of time, so it's nice to play when I can play. So I like to at least give myself some availability to play the game so I don't just lose motivation from the game itself, because that's what it revolves around for me is the game. I got to be able to play it a little bit and dive into what I enjoy the most that intrigues me and brings me more ideas on what type of farming I'd want to see and whatnot.
So for your Wompsville map, that's obviously going to be focused around uh, your friend's farm. Um, do you do you how do I ask this? For the maps that are not ones that you have personal connections to, um, you're obviously going to try and set them up as close to real life as possible. What kind of research do you do in order to try and make that happen?
Because right now things are a little complicated with editing base game crops. It's a little odd right now, and it's a bunch of hearsay right now on how to do, like, even if you wanted to just mess with the base game crops, um, seasoned growth, so you would have it average to what it would be in one certain type of the world, you can only do that for PC right now, which has the only fix of the Thunder's default crop types, which makes it so it uses a scripting that loads the crops a different way so it doesn't duplicate them in a way. I'm not exactly too sure of the backing workings of it, but that's from what I've a little bit from what I've gathered with it. But I can't say exactly on it because I haven't used it yet. It's just that's what I've been told is a fix for doing something to the base game crops with what's been updated with 25. So right now for console, I'm kind of limited on the seasons type stuff. So that's why I want to make my own winter wheat crop so players will be able to still do winter wheat if they want, or barley or whatnot. So I'm trying to find a little bit of workarounds for the couple console maps that I do and the ones of the possible future, so they will even be able to have a little bit more immersed realism with the crops alone and their planting. So if someone's planting in what you want to say, you could say Texas, their season's planting is going to be a little different. They don't get as much snow as we do up in here in New York, so they may be able to get it in the ground sooner or whatnot.
Okay, okay. So we've established that you've been playing Farming Sim for a very long time. Um, Now that we're on FS25 and we get to see and experience all the different features that FS25 has to offer, what was the one feature that you were the most excited about, in particular, in regards to how it's going to make your maps kind of be able to function with them? What was that one feature that you were most excited for?
I would say for map we're making, I would say the water. The water in FS25 just looks amazing, and the fog and whatnot. You can even make tornadoes look insane. I know someone that made one that he said it was up to a mile long. You could say we don't know exactly how big it was, but he just extended the size of it, and you can extend the amount of times you can get hit by the tornadoes in a season or whatnot, and extend the length of it. So instead of being limited to so long, you can make it so it lasts a couple minutes if you wanted, and absolutely tears up the woodlands and whatnot. There's a lot of nice stuff that they've included, especially the rice, because that brings more immersive style of American farming like the South, where in Louisiana, where I'm going to be making a map, a lot of the farming down there has American rice farming, which uses the long grain and the medium grain rice. Um, and also sugar cane, because I haven't messed with sugar cane since FS17, and all I did with it was plant it, and that's all I did with sugarcane. And I really want to give sugarcane more of a go and get involved in that style of American farming, and as well as do some American cotton farming and cash crop farming and whatnot.
So, again, taking the current level of skill out of it, let's say, again, you had all the prerequisite knowledge that you needed. What piece of equipment? Now, we mentioned before that you're not really too into the potential of making equipment, but what's that one set of equipment that, either you could make yourself and be able to make it for everybody, or that you just wish was available?
See, the thing I'm waiting on is the John Deere Titan series. That's my favorite combine, and I'm just waiting for the day someone, the creator, gets that converted and brought back over to 25. That's my all-time favorite harvester right there.
And you mentioned before that you really didn't follow too many map makers by name or anything like that. You more interacted with the content they were producing. But do you have a particular map maker that you would consider your favorite nowadays?
Nowadays, I'd say Delta South and Mapper's Paradise. And MRG also has a good few Wisconsin maps that he's done in FS22, like Westby, Wisconsin, and he did Ashton Corners, and No Creek also did, I believe, Loma, Montana, and another map. There's a great amount of American styled maps out there that I'm excited to see from the other creators as well start to come out more and more.
Excellent, excellent. And now I think that's going to be an end to this second segment. So let's go ahead back to the chat and see if there's any new questions that they are asking. So looks like we got another one from Ken. Says, "Will Star Spangled Mod, will Star Spangled's map have old school tractors and machinery on it?"
Um, so with the map, because obviously we're limited to only the base game stuff unless we what you call it, for so with Mod Hub you're able to make it so another mod is required to play the map per se, so you would have to download per se. What we did with New York was make the Volvo pack that Giants just released for Silver Run and the mining, the little dozers. We made that a required mod just because we have a lot of mining going on. So we want to have people be able to have a little bit more mining styled equipment for this start for the map, but not much for old school stuff for starting out. You would more so have to edit it to your play style, but it more so has American spec stuff, other than a couple things that I couldn't really figure out which would be the best start. But for the more so part, you'll have everything you'll need in the Homestead Edition for dairy farming, and with the Mining and Logging Edition, you'll have something stuff for um, logging and mining. And with the DIY, you'll have a few pieces of equipment just to start out with, and if you're trying to build your own map pretty much from scratch within the map, or if you're trying to build a whole city and whatnot, and just editing.
Excellent, excellent. And looking through the chat, I'm not seeing any more questions. So I think that means that we can move on to our third and final segment called That's a Silage Wrap. This is where we're going to go ahead and closing things out here. So, uh, first off, do you have any other future projects that you're going to be working on that we haven't discussed here tonight?
No, as far as right now, it's getting Wamsville, New York done and out, and posted on itch.io while we wait for Giants to get to it in testing. So PC players will be able to play on it and make some content out of something new. And then once it gets onto ModHub, it'll be taken down off of itch.io. So any updates that do come out, you'll be able to get right off of ModHub and for all players. And then getting Forest Wisconsin finished because I restarted that a little bit ago to try and do better at a couple things that I didn't like in the ways that I was going about, and have been giving different things a try and whatnot. And then it'll be the 4X Missouri map that I'll be partnering up with someone with, and then the Mimu, Louisiana map. And then after that, I'll be doing a vote for people to decide on what my next state will be.
Florida. That's my vote.
I've been looking at areas in Florida because me and my have a good buddy that's from down there, and he's at first trying to scavenge the maps for good farms was pretty hard. They're really scattered out there, but we found in a couple areas that we're looking at, but I cannot say when it'll come because after how much I've had to do with Wompsville alone, it can take so long depending on what you're trying to do.
Oh, absolutely. And uh, I would imagine that as you continue to grow and as you continue to learn, you're going to try and start to implement newer and newer techniques into your maps, which can, create its own headaches and create its own, kind of uh, time struggles. Is essentially what I'm getting to. So it's one of those where, hopefully, you know, the longest portion that we're having at this point, because you've been working on this for a few months now, hopefully you're getting to a point to where you're starting to get faster and faster, more confident, and because you know what you're doing, beyond this point here. So hopefully that means that once you continue to kind of learn and grow, that those new things that you start working on are going to be just that much quicker and faster, and able to do bigger and better things along the way as well. So we'll certainly keep our fingers crossed from that. Let's see. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have for here tonight. Can you remind us where we can find you?
Oh, you can find me on TikTok, Facebook, and a little bit of YouTube. I do a little bit of tutorials on there. I've got two just for introducing you to Giants Editor and to the Maps for FS tool, but the creator of the Maps for FS tool has been updating it and has put some tutorials out of it on his own that go in depth even more than mine with what you can do now. So it'd be worth checking out. IKWAT. It's just IKWA OT, I believe. But you can find me pretty much everywhere, and make sure to check that out.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Star, I want to thank you so very, very much for coming out here tonight. Had an absolute blast doing this interview with you, and I hope you did as well.
Oh, I had an amazing time. It's been a blast being here.
Excellent, excellent. Glad to hear it. So, this is the part of the show where I turn to the audience and ask, I hope that you enjoyed this. And if you did and want to continue to see this and continue to see more and more people come onto the show, go ahead and make your suggestions. Let me know who you would like to see of your favorite creators out there. Again, map makers, mod makers, YouTubers, Twitchers, TikTokers, whatever they are. If they are connected to Farming Simulator in any way, shape, or form, even if there's farmers out there, who may have a social media presence or may have a YouTube channel, whatever the case may be, because guess what? They're what Farming Simulator is based off of. If you have any suggestions as to who you would like to see on this show to be interviewed in the future, go ahead and hit me up on any of my socials and let me know who you would like me to try and reach out to. And I would absolutely love to be able to talk to anybody, big or small, doesn't matter who. I would love to continue to do this show and be able to bring you more and more people as time goes on. But again, I hope everybody enjoyed it here tonight. If you did, please show them by liking, sharing, subscribing, following, commenting, doing all the things the algorithms enjoy you doing. It shows you're engaged with this channel and enjoying the content. And that being said, I hope everybody has a fantastic day. Take care. Star, hang on just 1 second until after the outro, and I'll catch you on the other side, okay?
Alrighty.
All right. Take care, everyone.